All right. So before we dig into the database itself, let's take a look at your topic and think through maybe some search strategies.
Okay.
I've got your form that you sent in. So you're doing a co-relational study of minority students' perception of culturally responsive teaching to their academic performance.
Yeah.
So help me kind of break this down so that we can get some keywords that are going to have a good impact in the database.
Okay. So it's cultural responsive teaching.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at reading EOG performance, or high reading EOG performance. And then we're looking at minority students being African American, Hispanic, biracial. And who else is in my mix? Seems like I'm missing one more group. Hispanic. We'll go with those for now. I can't.
Okay. And what are some culturally responsive teaching strategies that are used? Like, are there any that have like a specific name?
Right. They're tenets that I'm focusing on. So there are specific tenets. Let me pull up my and get to it. I'll tell you what they are. Trying to make this smaller. Sorry, Dr. Bishop, give me one second.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
Here we go. Okay, so we're looking at student-teacher interaction. We're looking at homeschool connection. We're looking at language acquisition. What was the first one I gave you, Dr. Bishop?
Student-teacher interaction.
Line through that one. It's no, I put it under culture engagement. So it was cultural engagement, diverse teaching practices. Culture engagement, diverse teaching, diverse language affirmation. There should be 4 of them. Culture engagement, diverse teaching practices, culture engagement, and diverse language affirmation. How many did I give you, Dr. Bishop?
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so it should be 4. So it should be diverse teaching practices, culture engagement, diverse language affirmation, and culture engagement, diverse language affirmation, diverse teaching practices, diverse teaching, and diverse, like, oh, I said that one already. Okay.
Is it the homeschool connection?
I can't for some reason. Maybe because you're sure. Can you? I can't access my. Okay, there we go. I was trying to see my Word document. Okay, now I can get to it now.
All right.
This is better. As I was pulling from my old the survey that I revised, and that's why I was kind of thrown off. But I'm in my actual dissertation, so this makes life so much better. Okay, chapter 2, Stella. Make that bigger. Page up.
If you want, what we can do is work with the ones that we have, but that way we've got some examples to kind of play around with our keywords.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good.
So what I'm thinking about with all of the stuff that you've just kind of given me to work with, you've got your culturally responsive teaching, which is in of itself, it's a big umbrella. And then you've got like the 4 pieces that are underneath.
Yes.
And so in your literature review, do you plan to address each of those 4 pieces?
Yes.
Okay, so what we would want to do in terms of constructing a series of searches, you would want to research culturally responsive teaching and read about that in a bigger sense for that big, sort of introductory part of that section. But then underneath that, you'd want to get into each of the 4 tenets. So then you would want to do some deeper research that focuses on a specific tenet to see if there's, and this is just sort of exploratory, to see if there are any resources out there that focus on a single tenet. So I'm going to use, this is our new Bulldog One Search. Okay. And you would want to do the advanced search option.
Okay.
And I'm going to move our video feed over just a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm going to try, let's do, would help if I could spell. All right, so the search that I'm putting together is culturally responsive teaching. So we're going to go with the big umbrella right now. Okay. And then minority student. And if you notice after student, I put the little asterisk. That's going to look for both student in the singular and students in the plural.
Okay.
So that way I don't have to do the search twice. I'm kind of capturing it all in one go.
Okay.
And this version of Bulldog is called Summon. It's new to us, and so we're still sort of massaging out some of the kinks. Okay. So it may take a little while to feel like your results are really good. But so right now, I think I'm just going to close our video feed just because I keep having to move it around.
Okay.
So we've got 16,000 results, which, I mean, that's good to know that there's a lot out there. But like I'm seeing some information about like graduate students, so we may need to clarify which age group. So what age
middle
group?
School.
Middle school?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is, I wonder if there are any good keywords. Let's try doing our search over. I'm going to go with I'm going to take a look at the preview here.
Okay.
I was hoping that some of the previews would tell us, I'm not sure that middle school is the best term for that age group, just because you've got some schools that call it junior high, some that call it middle school, and we can try those different things. I was just hoping there might be one really good descriptor that we'd run across out here that would be like, oh, like that's what we should call this.
Maybe adolescent? I don't know.
Oh, that's really good.
Okay.
Or even adolescence or youth.
Okay.
Let's see if I spelled that right. Oh, I did. Well, it did bring up an entirely different search results list, which is really good. So, I mean, even just changing it like that from middle school to adolescent makes a really big difference. I think that that's a keyword that's worth using.
Okay.
And keeping in the mix. I'm going to also try youth.
Okay.
Since that is just a slightly younger group than, your typical teenage adolescent. Too bad we can't throw tween in there. And
Yeah, no, right?
so like this one talks about 5th grade students. I would even consider reading that article
Okay.
because 5th grade is still so close to that middle school age group that I think a lot of the information would be relevant.
Okay.
So in terms of your searches, really what you're doing is, and I'm going to go back to that advanced search page, you're thinking about intersections of these different words. Okay. So, you know, think about what you need or feel like you need to find, and then think about what intersections will help you get there. And we've already seen just by changing 1 or 2 words slightly, it really does impact what we get in the result list. If you wanted to also focus on, let's take out middle school and minority student, but let's just look at how culturally responsive teaching impacts reading.
Okay.
And reading is one of those keywords that's going to behave a little bit funny in the database. Okay. So would this be like reading comprehension skills? It's
really the results of their reading end of grade test.
Okay, and what is the reading end of grade test? What is it trying to measure?
It measures, would be, comprehension for the most part.
All right. Which I might have spelled that wrong too.
Nope,
I got it. All right. So, and it pulled up that article about the 5th grade students again, but here we've just come at culturally responsive teaching from a totally different avenue. We're still talking about the same teaching style, but now we're focused on what we want the students to learn rather than the students' cultural background itself. So that way you're kind of coming at it from multiple viewpoints, and you kind of cover it in a more circular way rather than a linear way. I also noticed in this one it says culturally responsive instruction. So you could even change teaching for instruction up here.
Okay.
And that's changed our results also.
Yeah, there are a lot of related words to cultural responsive teaching, cultural responsive pedagogy, cultural relevant instruction. So it's got quite a bit of titles to it as well. So
what I would do is probably sit down and make a list of all of those, like whatever the top 5 titles for it are, and then every time you do a search, just like switch out instruction for pedagogy, for teaching, for, you know, just to see the changes in the result list, and that way you're going to get the most coverage on that.
Okay.
So we've kind of looked at culturally responsive teaching as the big umbrella piece, but now I'd like for us to take a look at it in terms of some of those tenets. So I'm going to do just a big search for diverse language affirmation because that's something I don't really know as much about. Okay. And so I'm not sure how these keywords are going to behave. So let's just see what happens. I don't feel like this is representative of where you were wanting to go. The first one, maybe. Yes, the first one for sure. So I'm going to take a look at that keyword list.
Yeah, that's actually the researchers who I used their survey and got permission to use the survey and revise.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have this article of theirs?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to take, so they use middle school students, and this is something I also do too. I come down, I'm pointing at my screen like you can see me point. I take a look at their subject words. So they actually use like grade 7. So you could try, is there a specific grade you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking at 7th and 8th grade students. So they would be the ones with the data from the previous year.
All right. So you could even do a search for the middle school or grade 7 or grade 8.
Okay.
They also list academic achievement. I didn't think about that, even though I should have. So we could do a search for culturally responsive teaching. Oh, I knew it was going to get me before too long.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we get into things like the achievement gap, and I don't know if that's taken a step too far outside of your research circle or not, but that could also come into play too.
Okay. It is something I mentioned in like the introduction as part of the problem
Yes.
that leads me to it.
Well, and it could be that if you're not going to, like, if it isn't relevant to your research study to dig deeply into the research or the achievement gap, you could have just one source like this one that addresses the achievement gap. It's about culturally responsive teaching practices. This article may have broad use for you,
Okay.
but it still addresses achievement gap so that you can define what it is and the student population that it occurs with, and you can back that up with research. And so this is an article that can do double duty for you on that front. So
I was thinking too about reading performance.
oh, that's a good one. Let me do that. Oh, and this one talks about self-efficacy. I don't know if it's with your age population, but that can be kind of triangulated with your data on students' perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So, because this is talking about student self-efficacy, and so you can kind of overlap that.
Okay. Yeah, those are 12, 13-year-olds, and it's Hispanic population. So yeah, that would be.
I'm going to see what they use in their subject terms for that age group. So they're using grade 7 and middle school. So it seems like those two are the appropriate keywords to use for that group.
Okay.
So anytime that I find an article in my research that I really like and I'm thinking like, ooh, like this article is a really great fit, I always come and take a look at the subject terms. Like you hit that preview and then come take a look at the subject terms, because a lot of times I find words there that I wouldn't have come up with on my own that the writers and researchers are using to describe this topic.
Okay.
And that's really helpful in two different ways. One, you can plug these words into a new search and it becomes more targeted. But then two, as you're actually writing, you can use this same language in your own writing.
Okay. And then as to save it so that then I have to be, if memory serves me, I have to be logged into and then put it over in the file in order to save those researched or found articles that I want to go back to, right?
With RefWorks, yes. But what I've actually been encouraging students to do, just because we've had so much difficulty with RefWorks, I would recommend that you email the article to yourself.
Okay.
And then what we started doing with some of our senior seminar students, because they do pretty hefty research also, we actually had them go ahead and download the article and upload it to a Google Drive.
Okay.
And at the same time, have them go ahead and cite the source, because we can cite the item, and then choose APA. and go ahead and start putting their resources in alphabetical order by the author's last name in a Google Doc.
Okay.
So that way they have a bibliography already crafted. Now,
Okay.
granted, the citation thing, it's not perfect. It at least puts the right stuff in the right order, but sometimes the capitalization and including the DOI, that's not correct.
Okay.
So you still need the APA handbook, but I would just email it to yourself. You can download the full text, upload it into a Google Drive, so that way it's mobile no matter where you are or what device you're on. And then just maintain that current running bibliography in Google Docs.
Okay. All right. I was going to ask you something. What, Dr. Bishop, is that purple pink circle?
Oh,
yeah.
This thing?
Yeah.
It's an alt metric, and it just tells you basically how many people have cited and used this source. Like it's more for the writer of the article than it is for the researcher.
Okay.
Because this way, so like one person has referenced it in a Google post. 526 people have referenced using Mendeley, which is another free citation service. It's really just an indication how many times this has been used.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Another thing that I'm going to sort of throw at you is the way that the database is set up right now. Everything here will be full text.
Okay.
But you'll probably get to a point where you're seeing repetitive results, and you'll need to expand beyond our full text collection. And when you get to that point, click where it says add results beyond your library's collection, which is this little box right here.
Okay.
This is going to include all of the not full text articles, and we can get anything that's not full text through interlibrary loan.
Okay, and I'm familiar with it because I've
Yes.
used it before. Okay.
So I would definitely encourage you to get to a point in your research where you do click this box, because with your literature review in particular, you want to, at least for a while, expose yourself to everything that's out there.
Okay. Now, when I'm doing the search through Bulldog, do I then refine my search down to just scholarly and peer review on the left side, or because they're automatically in here, do they already? So is our library then already just scholarly reviewed and peer reviews articles?
That's a really good question. So our collection is a mix of, and I'm just going to click more over here where content type is. It's a mix of all of these different things.
Okay.
Which is pretty lengthy. So you've got your newspaper articles and your magazine articles and stuff. With your topic, most people are not going to write about culturally responsive teaching in a non-scholarly way. But what I would recommend is I would still look at the books and the ebooks and book chapters. I wouldn't want to exclude that. I would keep the dissertations in there, anything from a journal, and then I think that'll pretty well get you right there, and that limits you to scholarly things that aren't necessarily traditionally peer-reviewed, because you have scholarly writing, which would be like the books and stuff. And peer-reviewed is a really narrow, specific term to describe like a certain type of journal article. So I would want you to be able to access both. So I would choose by content type rather than using the limiters up here.
Okay, choose by content type.
You've also got, if you scroll down, there are subject limiters, which are down here at the bottom. If you click more, you also get that big list again whenever it generates. So if you feel like you need to narrow down beyond where your keywords have taken you, this is a really good next step.
Okay.
And sometimes it includes words that you wouldn't have thought of either.
Okay. Now, Dr. Bishop, when I'm on the Bulldog One Search, then it mentions, let me see if I can look at it on my side so I can give you the exact words that it says. It'll say, like when I go down and look for, and it says begin research in that particular area. And I go to databases by title.
Yes.
And I go to, because I know we mentioned, I don't know how to pronounce it, EBSCO.
Yes. So the EBSCO was the database vendor that we're not using anymore.
Okay.
We've switched over to ProQuest as our new vendor, and Bulldog One Search, we just we kept the same name on the front.
Okay.
But what's happening behind the name is now ProQuest rather than EBSCO.
Okay.
Yeah.
EBSCO, I think, was where my information was. Like it was housed somewhere in there. And
what I would do is, rather than go into databases by title, where it's going to give you the list of all the different databases, if you do Bulldog and click Advanced Search, which is in the top right corner, then that's going to search the entire collection together.
Okay. So I'm good with just staying in that one location.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I was kind of going different places. Okay. Let me go back to that screen. I had one other thing to ask you. I noticed.
Yep. Go ahead.
I noticed that the university also added on. Let me get back to it. Was kind of a research. Let me see if it's something different. Nope, went to the wrong thing. Yeah, it's called like graduate guides.
Yes. So we have one for education that I'm working on right now, but it's not finished.
Okay. Well, I went into the research methods.
Yes. And I'm going to pull that up too. So we've got the education guide, and then there's the research methods guide. This one is finished. It goes into the qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods. And let's see. I think there's one video. Nope, I've got that one in there. Yes, I've got the mental measurements yearbook in there. Since you already have your tool, you won't need to use mental measurements.
Okay.
So that part you won't have to worry about. But are you doing a fully qualitative study, or is yours going to be mixed methods?
It's fully qualitative.
Okay. What I would recommend that you do is take a look at the qualitative page. The must-reads that are over here on the side, as you're writing your chapter 3, you're going to have to explain like what type of study you're doing. So like if you're doing an ethnography, you're going to have to be able to explain like what ethnographies are, how the ethnographies work, or case study, or whatever. So these are just some tools on the side. So my study was a case study, and I used the Red Qualitative Research and Case Study book by Sharon Miriam.
Okay.
That one was really good. And I used the Cresswell Qualitative Inquiry and Research Design.
Okay.
A friend of mine she did a different type of study, and she used, which one was it? I think it was the Sage Handbook of Qualitative Research.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Brown has looked over my chapter 3, so I I flip-flop. I did 1 and then I jumped to 3, and then I'm coming back to do the 2. So the 3 look pretty good. I just got to go back in and revise the gosh, I can't think for nothing this morning. The table where I have the research questions in, and the how that it'll be measured and what question will. I know I went through and I created that. I think she wants it moved to a different location, just little pieces of things like that. But I went through layered and really used layered to kind of guide me through how to speak to the language of.
Yes, layered is a fantastic resource.
Yeah. So I still have it, and I used it to kind of guide 3, but right now it's just what's been turmoil for me is because, like you said, culture responsive teaching is such a broad topic, and it's been really trying to narrow the pieces down enough to feel like I'm hitting. I think what happens with me, Dr. Bishop, is I may go and say, all right, I just want to talk about culture responsive teaching as a whole and how it kind of created just a general history part as I get ready to go into my factors.
Yes.
But then that may lead me off into other stuff that I may read, and I'm like, oh, well, this could go somewhere else. So that's where I'm a little bit kind of off, I think, in the research.
It's a really tough balance because I struggled with the same thing in my chapter 2. And because you try to figure out, like, well, at what point do I cut myself off in terms of, giving the reader the pathway. And so one of the things that I did was I sat down with my chapter 2 and I thought of what I was looking at like a funnel. So think about your culturally responsive teaching like it's a funnel. You start big and then you work down to like your study essentially. So and there's not necessarily a right or wrong funnel down, but maybe just list on a piece of paper, starting big and then working down to the more specific thing, and just try to make it your goal to say, all right, I want to thoroughly address this, but at some point I've got to whittle it down to the next piece, and I've got to whittle it down to the next piece. And you get to your 4 tenets, and then at that point, like, you may whittle it down further and look at your student population by culture group and by their the fact that they're middle school students and not like high school kids or elementary kids, and then at some point you'll get the reading comprehension piece in there, and you'll have to decide, like, how do I want to stack the pieces? Culturally responsive teaching, the tenets. Do I then want to go into reading comprehension, or do I want to go into my population? Decide which piece comes next. And you may decide as you work on it and read it and write it, you may flip some pieces around, but at least it gives you an idea of where you might go.
Okay. Let me ask this, Dr. Bishop. As I'm working with those 4 tenets, is it best then in working with the 4 tenets is to explain the tenets in such a way where they're always associated with the particular area that I'm focusing on? Like, so if I'm focusing on diverse teaching practices, the diverse teaching practices are always kind of addressed as far as minority students or diverse teaching practices with reading in mind, or that way that it does stay funneled down?
Yeah, you can handle it that way, because if you've got like sub pieces that fit in each one of your 4 tenets, you can, rather than having those sub pieces like reading comprehension pulled out alone, maybe address it, like you said, within each tenet. So I would draft out several different pathways.
Okay.
And then based on the research that you find, and then just kind of how your writing flow happens, and also talk about it with your dissertation coach too, to say, hey, like, I've come up with these 2 or 3 different pathways to handle how I structure this information. And then I think if you go to your dissertation coach and say, here are some pathways I've come up with for outlining my chapter 2 and handling how these pieces are integrated, which one of these do you think looks like the one you would try first? And you still may go back to one of the others, but that way you're going to your dissertation coach with something in hand, saying like, hey, like I've thought about how this could, plan out. And then they've got something to work with to say like, well, I can see the benefit of this one and I can see the benefit of that one, but I think this one's going to be the way to go.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your help today.
Oh, no problem. So this has been, I've enjoyed working with you. So, and I hope that your writing goes well. So do you plan to propose this semester?
God willing. God willing. The plan was last semester, but unfortunately I had a really close death in the family. And so it just kind of put things on pause that happened around Thanksgiving. And I'm just, trying to start back writing. So I feel like I'm introducing myself to my writing all over again. I
understand. Well, the fact that you've come back and reintroduced yourself to writing, that's a really big step. So I think if you've taken this big of a step, I think you can propose this semester. I believe in you.
Well, thanks, Dr. Bishop. Thank you so much. I'll let you know. I'll shoot you a message or something and let you know where my progress is.
Yes, do that. And if you have any questions at all, just shoot me an email. If you get to a point and you want to have another Zoom session and look at some more more specific searches, just shoot me an email. We'll set something up and we'll roll with it. So
okay, awesome. Okay.
All right. Well, it was great meeting with you, and good luck. And I hope to hear from you again pretty soon.
Absolutely. You take care.
And I'll send you the recording just as soon as the video processes.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks. Bye.
All right, you're welcome.